Good morning, folks. Dr. John Taylor Kent here. It's cookies and milk time again. My excuse is it's a protein cookie. However, it's the last box. They jacked the price up. I used to get these for about $10 for the box of 2 dozen. They jacked the price up to over 15 bucks. I'm not going to do it anymore. I think it's the season and the time to begin cutting back on food intake. Fasting. Cutting down on caloric intake will actually be good for one's health. You'll live a little longer. The body will clean itself up and go after those cancerous cells. There's a fellow on YouTube I've been following for quite a while. I believe his name is Rex Tibosaurus. He was once a young man as well. And he came out with the Sniper 101 courses, which I followed. I never put it much to work. That's my fault, my error. And I'm at an age now where the idea of getting down in the prone position is kind of comforting, but there's a problem with that. You got to get back up, and that I don't look forward to. The things I used to do when I was younger. Rex came out. He's been coming out with some very philosophical videos. There's quite a bit of depth to this man. And I had no idea what a Bible scholar he was. I knew he was a believer. I knew he was a Bible reader. I could tell that. But he went into the nuclear war that's been hidden in the Bible for 2,500 years. I already knew which book he was talking about. Zechariah. I'd read it myself. And I could see it was talking about nuclear war. But I didn't put it into it the depth of word study that Rex did, nor did I look at the other books that were involved in this thing. It's a major breakthrough. I highly recommend it. The old guys wrote about the nuclear war that's just about here. And they did that in so much detail that there's no denying it. And since you've got the Biden regime who's hawkish about it, and Putin who said he would go to nukes if he had to, because he considers this Ukrainian business, the mischievousness that the United States has done in the Ukraine, no less, back when Barack Obama was president, he considers it, and the Russian people consider it, an existential threat. I think he's right. And our news media is controlled by the Khazarian mafia, just like our government is. Almost doesn't matter who's in the Oval Office, they're going to appoint Khazarian mafioso to the positions around them. The Khazarians control the whole country, including your money supply, your universities, big tech. All big tech is owned by the Khazarians. YouTube, fascist book, and what's that one that kicked me out a long time ago? The little birdies, Twitter. Yeah, well, I don't know if it's going to be improved very much when Musk takes it over. It's kind of like having Trump for president. It really wasn't that wonderful while he was president, but it darn sure was a hell of a lot better than what it is today. I mean, look at this. We're looking at $6 a gallon gasoline, and this last week, according to Bix Weir, we're looking at $15 a gallon gasoline. And apparently the Biden administration is only upset with the Saudis because they cut the oil before the election cycle. They were supposed to do it after this election. Maybe the Saudis are casting a vote as well, showing their disfavor. Forgive my bad manners. My mother would not approve of this video because I'm talking with my mouth full and eating at the same time. Well, she's not alive to correct me anymore. I wish she was alive, but I learned my lesson with my father. I told one of my friends early in this summer, I wish my dad was around just to give me one more good chewing out even. You know, I missed him so much. And I'll be damned. Shortly after that in my dreams, my dad shows up. Man, he was fit. It was when he was at his strongest, at one of his peaks anyway. It certainly wasn't later in life, but he was pretty strong in that. And he chewed my ass out. And he chewed it out so badly that I can tell you this. I don't know what it was about. I don't know what I did wrong or what I was supposed to do. All I knew is it was just a little bit too good. And I didn't want to have that happen again because that was a little bit of a disturbing dream. It's probably about June this summer. So be careful what you wish for. But I was glad to see my dad so damn robust. I just didn't like getting my butt reamed like that. Man, it was pretty bad. Anyway. There's biological war described in the Bible. If you read it carefully, you'll realize it describes a pox. Smallpox, most likely. And in case you're wondering, I think that's what Putin's biggest complaint was, is that we had set up biological labs on his borders, weaponizing smallpox, which would be an existential threat for all species of humans across the entire planet. As you know, I don't believe in race. I think we're separate species, and we're mixed at this point. We're mostly hybrids. Well mixed over the ages. And nobody knows what they really have for genetics. I do not trust the people that have established the norms for genetics. They're held by the Khazarians as well. Just like the banks, just like the news, just like the Hollywood movies, just like the shows on television. Everything is set up to screw with our minds, to brainwash us, and to keep us confused, to keep us paralyzed in a state of fear and learned helplessness, so we won't take any action. By the way, the best thing you can do when there's trouble is to formulate an action plan and execute it. Go ahead and do it. Even if you're making a mistake, you'll learn from it and you won't be paralyzed. Who knows? Maybe you'll have the wildest success that you didn't even dream about. What kind of success do I dream about? Well, if I was president of this nation, I'm not sure what the first thing would be. But high on my list would be declaring war on Mexico for the invasion. And I'd shut that border down in both directions. Nobody comes in, nobody leaves without a total debriefing, including biometric data, so we can fully identify them, and a full interview so we know what they've done, what they've taken advantage of us here in this nation. Because I'm going to send a bill to their country for what they've taken from us, especially the Mexicans. I'd want a limited war with Mexico, sending our special forces down there, telling our boys, dispatch the cartels with extreme prejudice. I don't give a damn about trials. I want those son of a bitchin' murderers, child rapists, adult rapists, those thieves, those dope dealers, those terrorists, those human traffickers, those coyotes. I want them dead and in the ground, fertilizing the earth. And then I would like, in my limited war, to send in the United States Army to administer justice there, and with the Corps of Engineers, because we're going to build up their infrastructure. We're going to build their silver mines and make sure their oil gets pumped out of the ground. And I am going to take some of it to put it to our new refinery in the Gulf of Mexico. No, it's not the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of Cortez. For our new refinery on our new port city for the state of Arizona. Yeah. Part of the bill is I'm taking that land straight across the rest of the country. And I think I'd be taxing the Federal Reserve at 105% of its profits since its inception in 1913. It's only fair. You see, they've been charging us interest on money that didn't exist since then. So it's been a big, giant fraud. I'd also insist that we go to gold and silver, and copper and nickel for coinage. I don't think I'd allow any of this banking system to continue to persist. I know you're going to say, America can't make right on her debts. Yes, we can. First, this central government has patents that are worth something. Second, this federal government has exceeded its limits. It was supposed to only occupy the 10 square miles of Washington, D.C. And they persist in holding property in these other states that they should have handed to the states long ago. So there's no problem with cashing out their debt. You just have to be willing to go through the changes. Oh, and I would love to have the whole fraud on social insurance, Social Security exposed, and then we'll let you seniors, of which I'm one of you, have a choice. You either get your monthly check or you get a lump sum. I think most people are going to want to take the lump sum when they find out how much is held for them on paper. I think I declare war against Great Britain. I want the notes from the Virginia legislative session in 1812 and 1813. They still have those under lock and key in Britain. I think we've treated the German people miserably. And what's worse is we're treating the Russian people ignobly, terribly. And what I love right now is Putin is about to kick your ass. I pray we get regime change soon. I want that Biden bastard and his Kamala bitch out of office. I'd really want him in prison if I could do it. Of course, if I was president, hell, I'd just order it. As far as cleaning the country up, I think the gentleman that led the free world, the real free world, not this bullshit in the United States of America, but he led them so they could recover from the debauchery that was foisted off on them by their guests, if you will. I didn't realize it till recently, but he dealt with the wokeness like we're dealing with it. Only they went a little too fast back then, got caught, and this gentleman got in power. He reversed the trends. I think we reverse the trends the same way. We monetize labor. If a man's willing to work, we give them the money. And in case you're wondering, the real economic stimulus of that nation was given was in the hands of the wombs of the women. If a woman was married, I believe the gentleman had a law that your husband could not leave you for a year. He had to stay in the house with you for a year. He couldn't go off to war. He couldn't go off to serve anywhere else. He had to stay home with his wife. It was his duty. By the way, that's out of the Bible from ancient Israel. And this fellow did a lot of what a guy named Muammar Gaddafi did for his people later on. And it's not going to give socialism a real bad name because it was so fair and it empowered the women so much. I mean, first of all, the gentleman created 6 million new jobs. That's where we get the figure of 6 million from. And to counter that, they had to make a false claim. The sociopaths had to claim that they lost 6 million. And there weren't any 6 million to lose. Yes, they lost. More like, let's just say 400,000, not 6 million. But they did lose. They certainly didn't lose that war. They won it. That's how come they rule the world today, and they occupy and illegally own the United States of America, including you or me. They set up several elaborate frauds, very sophisticated systems that are about impossible for the average man to comprehend. And for a man to comprehend everything they did, I don't think it's possible. I think the devil's in the details, and the details are just too much for any one human being to hold in his mind. But I'd love to have the chance. Oh, and definitely, you shut the border down. I want 2 decades moratorium on all immigration, but you're not allowed to leave until we've interviewed you and we let you go. And we send your country a bill for what you cost us. And we return to George Washington's tariffs and duties. Why? Because that's what the government ran on, and this will allow us to level the playing field. When you get rid of this communist income tax, which never was ratified, by the way, it wasn't even voted upon. The 16th Amendment never came to a vote, so it's not the law of the land. But George Washington gave us this vibrant middle class with the 30% tariffs and duties. Now, we expand that at this point because I want those companies that have got the Filipino women, who I admire quite a bit, and have got Indians on the subcontinent of India. For all I know, they pedal their bicycles, generating the electricity so they can charge up their cell phones and provide us that technical expertise they're so good at. We require those companies to declare a value on the service they provided over the internet and over the telephones, and they're required to pay 30% of that value into the United States Treasury. So there's no free expertise from people abroad. As far as these H-1B visas, whatever it is, these foreign visas, all are canceled. Yeah, I know there's going to be some good talent lost, but we have to level the playing field and give our own people a chance. And besides that, by establishing these standards, we actually help the little guy across the world because his labor gets valued much more in his own country. The gentleman whose name we're not allowed to talk about because they got him painted up as the most evil man in the world, he set up the most positive economic stimulus any civilization can have, and that is childbirth. When you have children, you have extreme motivation to take care of family. It motivates a man, it motivates a woman. They join together and form quite a strong team against the rest of the world to take care of their family. So by creating 6 million jobs, these men had work to go to. They could bring home a paycheck and got it out of the woman's hair, you know. I mean, spouse in the house is one of those things that doesn't go over too well, especially after you retire. Women are used to being alone in the house so much they don't want us around later on. So, the government gave a married couple a mortgage on a house. And the man had to stay there for a year. And there was work for him. And he brought home the bacon. And upon the birth of their first child, the government forgave 25% of that mortgage. Now that puts a lot of economic power in the hands of the wife and the husband. It makes for a good marriage. It makes for a healthy union. Both are contributing in major ways. Women get to lead fulfilling lives as mothers, raising good, healthy children. They're never going to be more fulfilled than by doing that which is natural to them, that which they were designed to do. And in case you're wondering, there's more to a woman than a man. She was given extra capacities for the purposes of motherhood. And when a woman uses those for womanly means, womanly ends, manipulation, she drives herself nuts. Yes, ladies, it's quite a crown you've been given, and it requires a balancing act. So men need to provide you with the safe, secure environment so that you can do that balancing act, so that you can take care of yourselves, take care of the children, take care of the house, and take care of the man. You really have major things to do. I don't think there's anything more important on the face of the earth than rearing children. You don't, and we're designed to do it by yourself, and you don't have to. Upon the birth of the second child, half the mortgage is gone. You got half your house for free. And then likewise with the third child, 3/4 of the mortgage was gone. Boy, talk about working your way to wealth. You know, having an estate. You know, life, liberty, and estate. Thomas Jefferson's error when writing that document was the pursuit of happiness rather than estate. Child number 4, mortgage gone. Family's got it made. The roof is paid for. Yes, they've got to maintain it. It's their property. But talk about motivation. Talk about reward. So this is what that gentleman set up. So now do you understand why the women loved him so much? Why the men loved him so much? Prior to that, the land there was filled with debauchery. There were 57 different words for 57 different types of prostitution in Berlin in the Weimar Republic. There was all kinds of weird stuff going on. And sure, there were book burnings that we were told, and there was a represented to us as if, well, they burned good books. They were suppressing free speech. They were against freedom. I just found out the first books they burned were of a physician who was advocating transgenderism, and they had a lot of perverted stuff going on, especially in Berlin. So they went after the woke crowd back then because the woke crowd was destroying their culture and their society. Does it remind you of any place today? Does it not remind you of your own society? Now, in the Bible, this particular sexual sin comes under a category, and it's called the error of Balaam. Balaam. Now, Balaam was the prophet, but not of Yahweh. So he was a prophet who worked for the bad guys, if you will. And he was the one that was hired to set a curse upon Israel. But he couldn't. He actually set a blessing upon Israel. And his donkey saved him one time because he stopped him from passage in this canyon. And there was an angel with a sword drawn, ready to slay Balaam in the canyon. And the donkey knew better, so he stopped. He wouldn't let him go. And finally, Balaam's beating on his donkey, on his ass to get him through there. And the donkey speaks up and speaks to him and tells him, I've been loyal to you all these years. And my reward is you beat me. And there's an angel with a sword drawn at the end of the pass here ready to slay you. And I'm saving your life and you beat me? It's a good book. You need to read it. Those stories are wonderfully entertaining. And no, it wasn't the Democratic Party jackasses that were giving Balaam the ride, although that imagery kind of holds in a certain sense. The Democrats actually were a noble party. The last great noble man was murdered, and they took down the whole jet in order to do it. And I'm trying to remember his name because I remember his presentation. And this guy was really, really intelligent. He knew what was going on, and he would have carried on in the spirit of Kennedy and taken this deep state stuff apart. They killed him by diverting a plane flight called 007 into North Korea. They sabotaged it through the electronics and the navigation, whereupon I think a Chinese MiG fired on the jet, taking everybody down. I cannot remember his name, but I can picture him. He's a strong man, pretty young man, stronger than Kennedy, perhaps more intelligent than Kennedy. He would have made a better president than Kennedy because he actually had far better morals. Kennedy had the morals of an alley cat. Him and his wife, Jacqueline, in their open marriage. That really cost the country a lot. Anyway, they murdered him quite a while ago. I think the year was about 1968, 69, 70. He was a congressman. I think he was out of California. Well, I just wanted to have a little talk with you to explain some things to you, and I got off track and lost my place. Lost myself. Thanks for indulging me in this whole thing. I wish I had a particular gift, a gem of wisdom to give you right now. I guess what I do want to tell you is that the foundations of the country are pretty rotten at this point. They've ripped up our history. They've ripped up our fabric. They've destroyed the family. They've waged a good fight against us, and we didn't even realize we were in this war. They've waged an unlimited war against us, and they beat us. And I don't see any way to vote our way back out of this. They won't allow us to have victory at the ballot box. We've got this horrible lady running for the governor in Arizona who actually certified a fraudulent election, and she knew it was fraudulent, and she's busy telling the lie over and over again. I don't know that she's a sociopath, but I think she's sociopathic. She's busy accusing her opponent of things that her opponent never did do, never showed any inkling of doing. And she's busy basically doing as she accuses her opponent of doing. Her opponent is Kelly Ward's baby. I preferred Paolo Zen, the businesswoman. I prefer her over this former radio show personality we have that's up against the Democrats right now. Things are in pretty bad shape when your best candidates don't rise to the surface. The Republicans are guilty of it as much as the Democrats. And I guess the most important thing is that it doesn't matter which party you're in. Both parties are controlled by the Khazarians. It's been that way for a long time. They own and run this nation. You know, all that stuff you call money that's in your wallet, you don't even own it. They own it. It's their property. Says it right on the bill. Can be, recalled at any time. They're all debt notes, all instruments of slavery. And we can thank the Democrat Party for giving that to us. And we can thank the Democrat Party for causing the inflation. If you don't want inflation, it doesn't come down to raising the interest rates. It comes down to narrowing the money supply, which means you can't pass stuff like this act. And that senator out of West Virginia has destroyed this nation. He was probably one of the best hopes the Democrats had to put a man in the White House properly. But he screwed things up. He sold out. And then they reneged on their deal to him in West Virginia. So I hope he's learned his lesson, because at this point it's going to cost the whole country. That's going to destroy the country. Unless we can change this regime in Washington, D.C. and reverse these last two bills and stop the creation of this inordinate amount of phony money, thereby reducing the purchasing power of everybody. Unless we can constrict this government, fire large swaths of it, and cut back on this money supply, the money's not going to have any value. Which may be the best thing that can happen. And I think Vladimir Putin is right on track to take us down with a new gold standard, no less. So imagine all these years we've talked about how they don't have a hard currency over there. And yet it's us who are left standing, holding the bag on this phony money, whereas Putin actually has got a gold standard by which he bases the value, the ruble. And he'll sell you energy if you give him gold. Sell you fertilizer if you give him gold. He'll save your agricultural business if you give him gold. But if you're going to build biological weapons labs on his border and threaten the very existence of his nation, it's a no-fly zone, man. And the no-fly zone should be established by Russia, not by the United States of America. We've been manipulated into war after war. World War I wasn't our war. And in case you're wondering, the Germans didn't start it. The British did. And World War II, the British definitely started that one. And I can't keep it all straight. It's so confusing at this point. You take care out there. Stay strong. Thanks for hanging out with me for this half hour or so. Yahweh bless America.